One and all, class of 1968. Please stand. These are the Golden Girls. Class of 2018. Please stand. Who could have imagined this 50 years ago? Not a single thought. What would it have been like then for us to have imagined now? In 50 years, the class of 2018 will be Golden Girls. We can speak to your future now. We are present together. Gifts. The Civil Rights Movement has one word in it that is a verb. That is the word that matters. Move. Say after me, keep it moving. Keep it moving. So today, the conversation will take place between two classes. There's a question, and a moderator will direct the audience's attention. But now I will introduce special guests. We have Dr. Mary Campbell. Please stand. President of Spelman College, for those of you who are visiting. We have Dr. Angela Ferris Watkins, niece of Dr. Clyde. She is here. We'll ask her to stand. If not, we will check back with her later. In the meantime, we are ready to begin. You already know the purpose. You already know the plan. But this is what I want to share. 3 things. This is personal. Each person's story counts. Second, this is political. Each person must stand and count. This is public. We are here together doing all 3. Being personal, being political, being public. Keep it moving. Give it back. Come on, you can do better than that.
We share a dream, you and I, of contentment and quality. In a world so cold, where we have been denied, in the land of opportunity, where every man is free, where every child should grow up and succeed. Oh, words of love and respect that you gave us.
Dr. Class of 66 Morehouse for that. My name is Jane Smith. I finished Spelman College in the wonderful class of 1968. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and while I was here, I was vice president of the senior class. And I'm representing Laura Burton, who was president of the senior class tonight and could not be with us.
Hello everyone and good evening. My name is Brianna Whitmore. I'm a senior political science major here at Spelman from Fairfax County, Virginia, and I currently serve as the senior class president for the class of 2018.
Brianna and I met about 5 months ago in a leadership development program. During the time that we were working together, we began to realize that I was here exactly 50 years ago, that she was not thought of or born at the time that I was here at Spelman. But we would have conversations about similar issues and found ourselves as Spelman sisters being closer and closer as she approached her graduation. When Grace Rogers decided that we would have this conversation between the seniors and representatives of the class of 68, we tried it out with a leadership program. And the women who are graduating this year were most impressed and thought that it was something that it was worthy and they would want to do. Whenever I work with Brianna, I always am a little sad because the class of 68 was just at the point of the development of the civil rights movement that we had hopes and promises that we never imagined would not all come true in 50 years. Never imagined that they would not come true in 50 years. I told Brianna that when we entered, it was on a roll. But between 63 and 68, there was the Voting Rights Act, there was the desegregation of schools, we had Martin and Malcolm, we had Marion Wright Edelman, we had Angela Davis. We were deciding to be proud of the natural hair that we had, and we felt that we were on a roll. And then in our fourth year, when we were seniors, Martin was murdered. Some of us were on campus, some of us were at home, but each and every woman in the class of 68 was touched. And so I said to Brianna, but we thought that there would be fair housing. I said to Brianna, but we thought that black men would not fear anymore. We would not tell our boys to be careful when you go out because of the police. But we thought that there would not be the raping of black women. And we thought that fourth graders would be reading on the fourth grade level. We thought that communities would be clean, there would be housing for all. And some of Brianna's responses to me.
Yes, well, as your class entered and exited Spelman, you guys were on a rise of hope. And one thing to note with our class is that we entered in the Obama years. We saw our first black president who was in his stride. In 2014, he had been reelected. His policies were in full swing. He had a Affordable Care Act going on. And I don't think we can say unfortunately, but at a certain point, our junior year, President Donald Trump was elected. And that banner of hope and change and inspiration that as Spelman women or as African Americans, period, we could do whatever we wanted as we got older with our education, that symbol of hope diminished. And as we see now, the riots and the marches and the similar civil rights issues that we saw in 1968 have persisted, and they've just taken on new forms, and the internet has shown us that we are not as progressive as we thought we were. And so tonight's conversation is going to be a great dive into what were those promises, how can we take them on in 2018.
Yeah. And so we have hope tonight. In one of the quotes from Martin, it said that the arc for justice is long. So we did 50 years. and there probably is another 100 to go. Spelman prepares us as a choice to,
Change the world.
and so here we go. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Zainab Kavia. I am a political science and international studies double major and a graduating senior. I am the class justice for the senior class council, and I will be introducing today's participants in the panel. Our moderator for today is Dr. Janetta Cross Brazil, class of 1968. Dr. Brazil had a career in higher education for 37 years, including 5 years as a vice president for student affairs at Spelman College. She is now retired. Ms. Grace Hill Rogers, class of 1968. Ms. Rogers' primary role models for the first 16 years of her life in LaGrange, Georgia, were a social justice activist, sung and unsung heroes. Her professional career encompassed 33 years in Minneapolis, Minnesota, including the Afrocentric Academy and Minneapolis Public Schools Action Research Program. Although under law she is African American, she is birthright free to keep it moving. Dr. Jane E. Smith, class of 1968. Dr. Smith is Vice President for College Relations at Spelman College. She has worked for both the Carter Center, the Keene Center on social justice issues. Her engagement prior to Spelman was President and CEO of National Council of Negro Women. Ms. Henrietta Turnquest, class of 1968. Attorney Turnquest practiced law for more than 30 years and spent 12 years as a Georgia State representative, including serving as an assistant administration floor leader under Governor Roy Barnes. Throughout her career, she has received numerous awards, including the Pioneer Award by the DeKalb Lawyers Association. Representing the class of 2018, we have Zaire Bailey. Ms. Bailey is the first attendant to Miss Spelman College. Her passion for advocacy started at a young age, and her need to speak on behalf of those who feel they are voiceless pushed her to become a political science major. In the fall, she will attend the University of California, San Diego to pursue her PhD in political science. Alex Chrisman, class of 2018. Ms. Chrisman is currently working on a t-shirt project to bring more awareness to the prison industrial complex and awareness to U.S.-based products that are made by prisoners. Proceeds will go to the Georgia Innocence Project, an organization committed to exonerating those who are wrongfully imprisoned. Lastly, we have Brianna Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore has served as the president of the class of 2018 for the past 2 years. During her tenure, her council has worked to eradicate discrimination facing African American women in the city of Atlanta and across the nation. Furthermore, she has worked as a legal intern for the Department of Justice. Thank you.
Good evening to you all. Good evening. Let's get some enthusiasm here. Again, my name is Janetta Cross Brazil, class of 1968. The way I want us to think about our conversation this evening is within the context of understanding that movements are not just one point in time. Movements have their roots in other movements. And so when you look at the civil rights movement of 1964, you have to acknowledge all of the other elements in our struggle in this country for equality that went on before 1964. in the same way that the movements for equality and justice are going on today. Their legacy is fully embedded in the civil rights movement of 1964. And for those of us who come of age, wherever and whenever we come of age, we are touched by whatever the circumstances are in our world at that point in time. The class of 1968 was certainly touched by the height of the civil rights movement as we were entering college and as we left college. The class of 2018 similarly is being touched by all of the events shaping their world as well. So what we want the panelists to do today is to address this question. How has the legacy of the civil rights movement shaped your personal and professional choices, both as a woman and as an African American? So each person will have about 2 minutes to give their presentation. At the end of the panel's discussion and their presentations, the floor will be open for questions and answers, or questions and comments from the audience. So please have that in mind. There'll be time for you to join in this conversation as well. So we are going to begin with the class of 68. We're going to go back and forth from 68 to 18 as it appears on the program. So Grace, you start us off.
I'm going to start with the first one.
I have a story to tell. My role model was my mother. She went to Bell Galvin, a department store in LaGrange, Georgia, and she tried on every hat in the department while the clerk was screaming, "You can't do that unless you're going to pay for it." And she continued to try on one hat after another. I was appalled. But we walked out of Bell Galvin, her head held high, her walk and her strut directed to our car, and we drove home. No hat, but her head was high. Story number 1. Story 2. Bell Galvin again, several years later. "My dear, I have something to show you." And she whisked me into the white women's bathroom on the 2nd floor. You can imagine there was no sound when there had previously been sound. She said, "Wash your hands." "Right there, dear, and then I want you to push that button." And the button was to my left as I washed my hands. And then I walked over to the machine, which was a shiny machine with a button. And I pushed the button. It was my first automatic hand dryer. We walked out of that bathroom. The only sound was the sound of silence. I never asked my mother about her audacity to just daily do whatever Loio wanted to do when it came to define whatever was the rule of law. And so that taught me that it is not in the big movements, it's in the little daily movements of defiance. That is where we learn to practice the big things to come. The legacy for the Civil Rights Movement was in First Baptist Church, and I watched as the students from Atlanta, college students, and I was 14, came to practice in our basement, listening to words that hurt. Nigger! Listening to words, go back to Africa! Listening to words, I'm gonna kill you. And they had to take those words and swallow them and use those words as nourishment in their walk for justice with their dignity intact. They were trained to fight back with their bodies, with their vote, with their professional ambitions to make this world a better place. I asked my father, why, Dad, did you tell me to put my hand out when you asked for volunteers for the march? And he said, last Sunday at the dinner table, you said, I'm spitting back if they spit on me. We can't have hot heads like you. You need to grow up, Grace. The legacy. Peace is not peaceful. Peace is being whole instead of going to pieces. That is the legacy. Dr. King and my father were in the same class in Morehouse. The legacy. Keep your head. Don't lose it. Serve.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody. My name is Zyra Bailey, and I'm one of the graduating seniors in the class of 2018. First, I just want to thank the class of 68 for your strength and defiance so that we can sit here today and have this discussion, so thank you. For me, the civil rights movement and its legacy has impacted everything that I've done as a Black woman. And we talked about earlier how in your generation, it wasn't about being a woman, it was about being Black over anything else. And because of the sacrifices you made, I can now see myself in another category separate of just being African American, but being a woman. It taught me to rock the boat and challenge norms that are set for Black Americans. And it's impacted my major in that I want to go into political science so that I can make sure that Black issues are discussed whether they want to hear it or not. Whether that be in local government, state governments, it needs to be talked about. As a woman, it's pushed me to always build up and empower other women because often we are broken down and told that we are to sit in the background, and if you've ever been to Spelman College, you know that's not what we do at all. And it taught me that in this life that I was given, I have to always speak up because so many people lost their lives so that I had that ability, so that I could continue to make change and that the power that my voice has is weighted. So that is just a few of the lessons that this movement and this legacy has taught me, especially in the Atlanta University Center. Meeting women like you has continued to make me never feel sorry for myself, make me always challenge myself to be better for the next generation, because what I do now is going to impact me. Just so you guys can realize, that's what you were doing then for us. We're here now because of what you did then, your fearlessness.
Wow, thanks so much. Thanks so much. I know I only have a little time, but I want to dedicate this to my mother. She went to Spelman for 1 year, and then here comes Henrietta. So she wasn't able to finish, but she wanted one of her daughters to finish. And when I got to Atlanta off the plane, I said, where am I? Why is the heat coming up from the state? I can't understand anything anybody was saying. And I knew, girl, you better go on campus. I did not have any Black teachers until I came to Spelman. So that was quite a transition for me, particularly when people talk about Black people so badly. How can someone who's a teacher, how can that person get us together and get us to do what we're supposed to do? And I want to tell you briefly the names of the 3 Spelman professors who made me who I am today. Because they looked at me and it was the most, awesome. The first was Dr. Vincent Harding, who was over the history department. And then one day I was walking down the street and Dr. Lois Moreland, she stopped me. She said, "Henrietta, have you ever thought about being a lawyer?" I said, "Excuse me." No. And she said, "I think you would make a perfect lawyer," and really, really encouraged me to go to law school. I didn't go for 2 years, but I'm so happy because I am in a system that's not designed to work for us. And so any little thing I can do, I'm going to do. Then one day I said, this is not working too much. What else can I do? And that's when the word came from above for me to run for the Georgia legislature. And I did that with absolutely no money, no support in my community. But I knew that a change had to come. And so I went to the legislature, and after a while, that wasn't working. But I want to thank you for this opportunity because as you can see, we all have expansive experiences that we really want to share while thanking the women, our classmates, who enabled us to make a difference. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexis Chrisman, and I have to say one of the biggest ways that the civil rights movement has shaped my choices today is by giving me courage to stand up for myself. I'm at a place right now where I will no longer tolerate racism or sexism in any space that I'm in, and I demand that from any space, any employer, anything like that. And I feel like though I'm really modeling my behavior off of class of '68 of the women who came before me, and even being at Spelman and just seeing how powerful it is to be a Black woman and seeing everything that we can do and how great we are. It's just really given me the courage to stand up for myself, to not just stay in the background, not just hold my breath or, try to pass over the things people say to me. I really do try now to stand up for myself in everything that I do, and I don't tolerate anybody coming for a Black woman, anybody trying to say that we're ignorant, that we're not capable, because I see it every single day. I see it at Spelman. So that was one of the major ways that the civil rights movement has impacted me positively.
Can you hear me? My father is from Albany, Georgia, and his father was a Baptist minister. Martin King's father was a Baptist minister in Albany, Georgia for a number of years, and so they knew each other. My father and his father, my grandfather, dedicated themselves to the Kings before I was born. So from the time I could understand what words were, I knew what my father said to us all the time. Whatever the Kings want, we do. Whatever the Kings believe in, we believe in. And so I came over here to nursery school, went to public school, came to Spelman knowing that I was part of the posse or a disciple of the King, all of the Kings to this day, through the trials and tribulations, just always being there. My father said that I should be a supporter of the King family, no matter what, because they believed in peace. Peaceful ways of doing everything that had to be done. When I was at Spelman as a senior, and I think you were a part of this, a group of us, about eight of us started a group called Sisters in Blackness. There you go. There you go. There you go. And we would occasionally meet and just talk about what was going on in the world and how we should be responding to that. It was during that short time, during my senior year, when I changed from wanting to go to law school to working in the movement. But I didn't want to be a foot soldier. I wanted to be in nonprofits. So I can say to you, as I sit here in front of you today, that each and every single job I've had, including Spelman, has been about social justice. I had a stint at the Carter Center purposefully. I had a stint at the King Center purposefully. And both came about because they found, President Clyde found out I was from Albany, Georgia. He likes Albany people. And the Kings knew that my father had told us that we worked for the Kings. We believed in the Kings. We were there when they want something. So every day, as I walk about around Spelman College, my students will tell you, I tell everybody, I am a race person. I am a race person. I think race first, all the time, about anything. And when I have the opportunity to remind somebody about race, I find a way to put that in there. So I do believe in higher education, but I believe first in institutions that stand for justice.
Good evening, everybody. Just to provide a little bit more context about myself, I grew up in the suburbs of Midwestern Virginia in the post-racial Obama era. Just everyone assuming that racism was dead. I even had a third grade teacher tell me that racism was dead during Black History Month. Well, middle-aged white woman told me that there was no way I could ever be discriminated against because when Martin Luther King was assassinated, racism ended. Clearly that's not true. But what the Civil Rights Movement taught me growing up, especially once I entered the gates of Spelman in 2014, was that it's important to dissect the interactions that we see past the surface level. As Ms. Rogers spoke in her background story, she mentioned that her mother did simple acts of civil disobedience that caused rebellion in her area. And we see that in images in Time magazine from that era. And now Time magazine has turned to Twitter, and we see so many different images and videos of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so what that impact of the Civil Rights Movement to me has been is the importance of understanding how racism and discrimination has shifted so that we can evolve past it, and not just that, but be able to call it out for what it is instead of allowing it to be swept under the rug.
We all have powerful stories to tell. No matter our age, we have powerful stories to tell, and we must continue to tell them. And now it's your turn. So there are those of you who have questions you want to ask. If you have comments you want to make, now's your time. Your microphone is strategically placed for you to do so. And I know I'm not going to be in an audience of shy people. It's okay. This is your chance. What is your response? What is your take on what we've been talking about so far?
I want to thank Zaire for saying thank you to us and to tell the story that when we talked about this in this leadership class, I think it was you, Alexis, who said, can all of them who graduate come back and we can meet them? Which was a wonderful statement to the class of 68 about appreciation. But is there any way we have failed you? Is there any way, and not necessarily these 7, 8, 9, 10 people, but those who were before you, is there any way that we have failed you? Or audience, we've got students, great number of students here. Yes, come on up to the mic, please.
I can project. I feel comfortable doing so. Good afternoon or evening. My name is Iman Seidner. I'm a first-year student psychology major. One thing that I did realize that after listening to Ms. Grace's story, I realized that my daughter will only be going to Spelman College and no one else until I've been paid for. But I don't think that you guys have failed us in any way, but there are ways that I wish you guys fought more about, because although you did fight for our blackness, you did not always fight for our womanhood. And I don't know if you knew about certain maybe hashtags that went on earlier in the year.
No hashtags. We had hash.
events where a couple of names were released and it started a We Know What You Did movement or something similar to it, similar to the Me Too movement. And I realized that a lot of things that happen to girls on our campus are covered up and swept under the rug. And like, I have friends who are continuously being swept under the rug. And I don't think that you all have failed us in any form, but I think that like maybe you all should have pushed the womanhood aspect a little more before our blackness, because I don't say, oh, I'm black and then I'm a woman. No, I'm a black woman as a whole, not just as one or the other. So like, I wish that there are more ways that we could fight for like our sexuality, because it's constantly being portrayed that we are these, like we're sexualized constantly, like a black child is sexualized, black girls are sexualized, girls in general are sexualized. Like I was reading something earlier today about how girls are fast and that like it's your fault, or it's like we put off young girls as being fast, and that's why men, like, but we don't talk about how predatory men are. And then it's things like that where we'll talk about, oh, well, she did this, this, and that, and the fourth, or there's a lot of things where it's like, there'll be a man and a woman, and they'll only talk about the woman, oh, she's a hoe, oh, she did this, she's not about, like, they'll just degrade the woman. I'm like, it takes two to tango. So we're not gonna talk about what the man did? And we constantly like to overlook what men do, but we always love to focus on what the women do. So I think that's one aspect. I don't think you want to fail us anyway, but I think that's one aspect that maybe we can work on for our future and the people and the generations after us.
Very good. Thank you so much for raising that question as an issue. It was an issue before we were black in the way in which we have been racialized. Women, if you look at the civil rights pictures, Dorothy Height was the only woman represented in a circle of black men during the march when Martin Luther King gave his speech, I Have a Dream. And we were very aware of our men needing to have a place and a role because they had been put in a particular limitation. That limitation was, and here's the hierarchy: white men, black men, white women, black women. So women were at the bottom. So your concerns today are valid.
Come on, Miss Green.
Okay, first thing I want to say, the Civil Rights Act. Well, let's start with the Civil Rights Bill. The bill was passed in '63. The act was passed in '64. The Civil Rights Act not only decriminalized segregation, but also it worked for women's rights. It wasn't just black folks' rights. It wasn't just black women's rights. It was women had no rights. As Grace said, even though the white women had more rights than we did, they didn't have many rights either. So the act included segregation, women's desegregation, women's rights, and voters' rights, because that wasn't a part of the world either, not our world. So I'm with you when you say it's for your generation to do. Because the civil rights movement went on for years. And there were just some things that, as Jay said, still haven't been done. It's a long fight, and it is a fight. Still not, we're with you.
I think the thing that we all have to remember is that movements are on a continuum. Okay? They build on, every piece builds on the other piece. And so the work is never done at one point in time. And so everything's not fixed at one point in time. And yes, there's a lot of work to be done. And so we all have to remember that it is on a continuum. Okay, who's next?
I don't believe your generation has failed us in any way. But one thing I do think is that your generation has lost faith in my generation and the generations under us. And I feel a lot of times we only hear how selfish we are, how into our electronics we are, but I think we need you. I think we need you as mentors and supporters and help us find new ways to strategize we're a very socially conscious generation. And I think we talk about things a lot, but because we're not often out protesting, or we're talking on Twitter, or we're having these discussions on social networking sites, it seems like I think sometimes your generation feels that we don't do enough, we don't care. And I think what we need more so is mentorship to figure out how we can mobilize and make those things impactful, because we do care. But sometimes you just need a little bit of a push or a little bit of guidance. So I don't feel like you guys feel this in any way, but I do feel like we still could use your wisdom and what you've gone through and help us figure out new ways, because I think America can now say officially racism is still not dead. It's still here. None of us have been crazy for all this time. So how can we continue to make this conversation relevant when we have groups like Black Lives Matter being criminalized? You guys have had to go through that. So just continue teaching us your history so we can continue to fight. I think that's it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm here to see everybody.
Okay. That's why I had it right. I just want to say that as we were coming to Spelman, there were very many issues that we faced. One of which, the primary one, was our color. It was so complicated being a woman of color in the South at a school that was like a cocoon for us. Because when you walked out of Spelman's gates, you faced the reality of segregation, and of the hostility that the world felt toward us simply because we were Black. So we didn't have a whole lot of time to think about being a woman. We were women. We came from this prestigious cocoon of school. And we were taught to stand for ourselves and be for ourselves and be for each other. As we left Spelman, then the reality of not only our race, but our gender faced us as we went into a work world that didn't want to pay us. They loved you. You say, I love you, you're so good. Well, pay me. Pay me. But you know, they never did. I never really felt, and I'm retired now, that I was paid what I was truly worth. But the joke is on them. Because I acquired and maintained what was important to my family and to me. So we talk about the community responsibility we share, but it begins at home. How, if you have children, are you raising your kids? Are you telling them what opportunities they have that have arisen through the sacrifices of so many of us? Don't forget that. Sometimes I think that we live in an illusion. Because when you're one-on-one in this society, it will kick your butt. And you just have to be ready to have strategies and the physical and emotional ability to withstand that and work your plan. Ignore that you can't, you won't, and I did. Just do what you have to do. And that's what so many of these wonderful people have done, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
Comments, thoughts?
Here's
Okay, Brianna.
Brianna.
One thing that I'd like to recognize, and we did special guests earlier, we mentioned Dr. Angela Watkins. And I've noticed that Ms. Ferris Watkins is in the audience, so I just recognize her for a second. Hi, Ferris.
Come on down, Ferris. Thank you. May I get my name? Yes. Spelman is very proud that Dr. King's great-grandmother, grandmother, mother, sister, niece, and grandniece have come to Spelman. Ferris, please let them see the legacy. Please stand up. Just let them see the legacy.
All right.
My mother is here.
Oh, we can all come in. Come on. Okay. First of all, it's Don's right there. You two come up here. We have to look at you. Come on.
When Ferris was 2, I met her in the vestibule of Ebenezer. And I stooped down and I said, I hear you're going to Spelman Nursery School. And she said, I'm going to Spelman College. And here she is.
Right, exactly. Would either of you like to share, what about the generational difference in the two of you? Thank you, Ed.
Okay, this was one of those occasions that I wanted to just sit quietly and enjoy, but oh well. But I'm glad to be here, and of course, Jane emailed me, I think last week, and when I saw that this activity was going to take place, I knew that it would be special, and I mentioned that I would try to get in on this, and it is indeed special. We need to have more conversations, generational conversations, and times of sharing. I'm always delighted to see those who labored when, even when I was a child. I'm an alum class of 1986. And so to hear from those in the class of 68 and to understand that that was a very critical time and that you all really were very much a part of what we are resting on now. And to hear and to see how you navigated your way is nothing that we should take for granted. I'm also delighted to see the very powerful class of 2018 represented up there, and to hear their stories. And always delighted to be in the company of my daughter and enjoy moments like this. We're very close, and I think I've tried to make it my business to, help Ferris understand that she has come from a line of people who care about making a difference, that each of us has to take a part of that and do what we must, what we feel strongly about. And so I think by now she understands that she has a great mantle to pick up and carry forward. I think that it is important, and I share this everywhere I go, the greatest lesson perhaps, and Grace, I think you touched on this, the greatest legacy I think that my uncle left us was his strategy. There are so many movements, Black Lives Matter, for example, the Me Too. There's so many movements that are very important, but we have to ask, when all of these thousands of people show up at the Capitol in Atlanta or in DC, what happens after that? Has there been any change? And this very successful model that we have for change around social justice is the civil rights movement. And there's so many people that contributed to that success, certainly the class of 1968. And that strategy, tried and true, is something that we need to know about, we need to study, we need to implement, and that is the strategy of nonviolence. Now, when we hear nonviolence, we think that that is, a wimpish way out, that it is simply the absence of violence, but it's much more than that. It really is holding up the standard of love. And so my uncle wrote about, talked about, preached about, demonstrated 6 principles and 6 steps of nonviolence. I would love to see the day when every student in Spelman College really knows those 6 principles and 6 steps of nonviolence. My favorite principle of the 6 is separate evil from the evildoer. And this is something that I try to walk out. So whether it's a conflict, a daily conflict with a roommate, or baby mama drama, baby daddy drama, or some institutional racism that we're dealing with, or societal ill that we're dealing with. It's the same thing, that we must separate the evildoer or evildoers from the evil. That way we can deal very hard in resolving the issue without being sidetracked with personal stuff. A lot of times when we get involved in movements and even combating conflict one-on-one, it becomes personal. And so we start spending a lot of time on that, and the issue is never resolved. And so if you notice, all of the protests and campaigns during the civil rights movement, they were committed to dealing hard with the issues. And that's how laws got changed. And at the end of the day, even take my uncle's letter from a Birmingham jail where he was put on blast by a fellow clergyman for being in Birmingham. They said it was untimely, he needed to go home. And he could have put them on blast. He could have cursed them out, could have had an attitude. But he demonstrated how love is the most powerful weapon we have. So he dealt with the issue there in Birmingham and won. And he was able to still love those ministers and everybody else. And that's why he's held up in such great esteem for carrying out that love ethic. We are charged to do the same thing. So I would, if there's anything I could contribute tonight, it would be to encourage all of us to grab a hold to the lesson of the 6 steps and 6 principles of Kingian nonviolence.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your comments. Clearly, there's a need to have more intergenerational conversations, and so let's hope this is just the beginning of that. Now, I'd like to welcome to the podium Dr. King.
Thank you very much. Honestly, I wish we could go on longer and hear more of the conversation between the class of 1968 and the class of 2018. But I want to start out by thanking Dr. Jane Smith. She is one of the to the members of the class of 1968 for being so candid and forthright and coming and speaking with confidence here and in the audience. And class of 2018, you are a powerful group of Black women. And I have no doubt that in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we will be hearing from each and every one of you. And I want to end with just a few thoughts from what I take away from this conversation. I'm thinking that, the civil rights movement was a radical movement. It was profoundly radical. We were changing the structure of this country. We were getting rid of the apartheid that divided this country, and we were demanding that it become part of not only our practice, but of the law of the land. And that was a powerful thing. Black people claimed the moral high ground for this country. Black people became the conscience for this country. We were the ones who were saying, here are our ideals, you need to meet them. That's the identity that we brought to that time. And so that movement was incredibly powerful. And as I think about that movement, I think about the fact that we're going to celebrate Founders Day next week. And I think about Spelman College. And in 1881, Spelman College was every bit as much a radical act. We were shedding up the identity as a country, as a slave nation, as my good provost who's sitting there likes to say. We were shedding that slave nation identity. And we were taking on this new identity. And here comes Spelman saying, yes, and Black and women, and I agree, we can never lose sight. Sojourner Truth, ain't I a woman, right? We can never lose track of that. Black women were saying, we're going to claim our space. And looking at our people, from that time to now, our entire history has been a history of claiming our space. We came out of the South into the North in the migration in millions coming up north to claim our space. After World War II, it was all of those veterans coming back that enabled the civil rights movement to have so much energy. Because all these veterans are coming back saying, hey, I fought in World War II. I have a place here too. That was the wind behind the civil rights leaders. And so thinking about that as we think about electing Barack Obama, who thought he was going to win? There were 12 candidates. He was number 12. But he claimed his space. We have such power as women and as a people. And thank you, Dr. Ferris Watkins, for reminding us of what that movement teaches us, because Spelman College should be that model of those 6 principles. We should be that model of the beloved community. That's the legacy, that's the lineage from Dr. Martin Luther King. That is his legacy. So I thank you for tonight. It was really incredibly valuable, I know, to me, and I'm sure to everyone else. Thank you.
The class of 68 wants to close with the Spelman hymn, so the Spelman sisters come up and everybody enjoy us. Okay. If we can come up, younger sisters, middle sisters, older sisters.